Fresh meat.
The conspiracy thriller has been around since before the days of Fritz Lang and Orson Welles, but cinema is a special medium to tell stories about distrust. Something about looking at an image through the manipulative, warping lenses of a camera. The 20th century sees the explosion of a postmodern society with postmodern fears. In the 60s, you had the Vietnam War raging on and the assassinations of JFK, MLK, and RFK. Two of these in the same year, by the way. To make matters worse, during a time of seemingly never-ending Cold War, the scandals simply never stopped. In 1971, the FBI's counterintelligence program was made public, revealing multiple covert operations conducted in an attempt to neutralize groups and individuals perceived as subversive. Conveniently, most of these targets were left-leaning. Neutralization meant not only assassination, but public humiliation and false accusations of criminal activities. The Winter Soldier investigation exposed numerous war crimes committed by the United States during the Vietnam War. A year later, the Watergate scandal would explode, leading the then President Richard Nixon to resign. Nixon's successor, President Gerald Ford, granted him a full and unconditional pardon, because the United States is, as you can see, a very serious country. The 70s was a very important decade in American cinema. New filmmakers, new influences, new perspectives, new Hollywood. More complex, sophisticated languages were being formed, and that included the language of the paranoid thriller, codified by Alan J. Pakula's Paranoia trilogy, composed by Klute, The Parallax View, and All the President's Men. But 2 years after the Watergate scandal and 2 years before All the President's Men, Francis Ford Coppola released the greatest paranoid thriller of all time, The Conversation, starring Gene Hackman. This story about a surveillance specialist was already playing with genre conventions by focusing on the observer instead of the observed. It's like Rear Window, but in hell. The Conversation is a film that, unlike most paranoid thrillers, doesn't primarily evoke the feeling of paranoia. It actually evokes the consequence of living a life of paranoia, and that's loneliness. The protagonist of the paranoid thriller is, most of the time, alone. They may bring people into their world, but it's a relationship between total opposites. The paranoid is alienated, either by choice or by force, exiled into an open prison where the world has a very specific, undeniable appearance. Life is a truth that cannot be unlearned, and reality is a sight that cannot be unseen. The paranoid dares not look while daring to not look away. Meanwhile, the outsider is tested. They either find the paranoid too strange and ostracize them, treating them like a pariah, or they pay the toll of immersing themselves into the world of a person who does not see things like the average individual does. And that does take a toll. It is risky, painful, and dangerous. Our protagonist, Harry Call, is a very lonely man, and that's connected first and foremost to the fact that he believes that everyone is always out to get him, and therefore, he should always be one step ahead.
Why are you following me?
I'm not following you. I'm looking for you. It's a big difference.
The woman he sees on a casual basis doesn't know anything about him, always being kept in the dark and at times becoming a target of Harry's paranoia.
Once I saw you up by the staircase hiding, watching for a whole hour. You think you're gonna catch me at something?
Loneliness is the inevitable consequence of being in a line of work that makes you look at people simply as clusters of information, targets, and opportunities. It dehumanizes every person in your life until you're the only one left to dehumanize. After all, why would you see yourself as anything more than a problem to be solved when that's exactly how you see everyone else? The moment you see everyone as data, it won't take long to start seeing yourself as such. Perhaps we should talk about one of Harry's most defining characteristics: guilt. The movie's tagline says it all. Harry Call is an invader of privacy, the best in the business. He can record any conversation between two people anywhere. So far, 3 people are dead because of him.
He'd kill us if he got the chance.
Harry is a devout Catholic, always confessing his sins in eternal regret for getting people killed. And this guilt is what motivates his obsession with the conversation he recorded. You know, the plot that names the film. The exchange between an anxious couple hinting at a sinister conspiracy that could put their lives in danger.
He'd kill us if he got the chance.
Harry Call is a man cursed with trauma and anxiety, so tunnel-visioned by guilt and despair he can't see his own flaws, so obsessed he won't allow himself to live. That is demonstrated very clearly in Harry's nightmare later in the film. As he walks and talks to the woman whose life he is trying to piece together and ultimately save, she is silent. She is simply what he thinks he knows about her without actually knowing her. To Harry, she is an assembly of assumptions and puzzle pieces, and not all of the pieces he has at his disposal belong to the puzzle he's trying to assemble in the first place. Harry obsesses over things he has observed but has never engaged with. It's some deeply antisocial behavior that was bound to cause a disaster or misunderstanding.
I'm not afraid of death. I am afraid of murder.
It's no coincidence that so much of this movie is focused on technology, on hardware. It's a metatextual sub-narrative on the nature of manipulation, all about media manipulating media and showcasing the interpersonal and social consequences of this manipulation. The titular conversation is recorded at the beginning of the film and then meticulously modified by Harry so he can understand what's being talked about. Everything about this couple's conversation hinges on its context, or lack thereof, which is precisely what brings us back to this line of dialogue
He'd kill us if he got the chance.
and the eventual plot twist.
Cure the dead train problem. Will also cure the problems of station crews and electronic crossing. The answer is no. At the end of the news last night, it was stated that Nixon would not deliver the State of the Union message in person. Why not? Well, we don't really know. The only explanation that was given by the secretary.
He'd kill us if he got the chance.
The couple Harry was trying to save from being murdered were the ones planning the murder all along. His efforts were useless and only served to further destroy his life.
Hello.
We know that you know, Mr. Cole. For your own sake, don't get involved any further. We'll be listening to you.
I would be remiss to not mention Tony Scott's Enemy of the State, released in 1998, where Gene Hackman plays a retired surveillance specialist assisting the protagonist, played by Will Smith, who stumbles upon a conspiracy involving the NSA and is now on the run as the agency tries to fuck his shit up. Hackman is not actually playing the same character, the backstories don't match, but the references are obvious and Harry and Brill are supposed to be different shades of the same person. It's very interesting to see how Tony Scott expands the ideas introduced in the conversation. The slow, descending overhead view of a camera becomes the rapidly shifting, omniscient eyes of a satellite. The looming camera moves and careful editing take a step back and allow the equally careful but hyperactive moves and cuts to paint the familiar picture of a Tony Scott thriller. There's even an entire sequence referencing the conversation's opening scene. Two people walking and talking, having no idea they're being spied on. Enemy of the State is basically a 70s paranoid thriller updated to the fast-paced 90s and the, at the time, upcoming new millennium.
What the hell is happening? I blew up the building. Why? Because you made a phone call!
These cautionary tales become more and more relevant. The conversation was released in 1974, way before the internet, and during the first decades of the information age, and it already tackled the horror of unchecked surveillance. The only mistake Coppola made in this film was to be naive enough to think that those who spy on us would always have any semblance of humanity or guilt over what they do. The age of people like Harry Cole is gone. More than ever, you are likely being spied on by a machine, cold and unfeeling.
It doesn't feel pity, or remorse, or fear, and it absolutely will not stop. Ever.
The machine might be supervised by a human, of course, but that human's intentions are questionable to say the least. You and I live in a world that pushes as far as it can to make us believe that we are simply numbers, data, information, threats. That surrendering our private lives is the only way to exist. That putting a target on our heads is the only way to be real, to be considered, to be noticed. Online lives bounced around by the whims and wills of countless algorithms. And believing you are not a part of this is laughable. The government doesn't need to inject you with a microchip through a vaccine during a pandemic when you have a computer at home and you carry a cell phone in your pocket 24 hours a day. Whatever they want to know, they will know, and you have given it to them on a silver platter. Got a computer? They know. Got an email? They know. Got a cell phone? They know. Got social media? They know. Got a car? They know. Got a smart TV or a smart fridge? They know. And who's they? Anyone who can profit off of your life being a bag of data with a big dollar sign on it. And trust me, a lot of people could profit from you simply existing in this world. You have likes, dislikes, opinions, friends, and secrets. These are all for sale, and you are not going to see a dime from the transaction. Alexa, play something really loud. We have essentially accepted the fact that every ounce of our existence is a valuable product, that we are not safe. The conversation at least tries to offer the audience a perspective from an individual whose humanity is at stake. Harry Cole cares. To him, human life matters. Being responsible for the death of people is a transformative experience for him. This could be the biggest takeaway from this movie. Francis Ford Coppola tried to show us how dehumanizing this compulsive vulnerability is. But the structures we live with today are not human. They are all faceless and tremendously harmful. Corporations are not here to serve you. Governments are not here to help you. The police are not here to protect you. At the end of the film, Harry finds out he's being spied on. There is a listening device somewhere in his apartment. So he does what any sensible human being would do and tears the whole place down. He destroys everything around him, except for his saxophone. The one thing Harry doesn't want to lose after losing his barely existing social life and his faith. There is a comfort in giving up. A comfort in knowing that someone is watching your every move and just letting go, letting it happen. There is comfort in sinking deeper without a care in the world, drowning in the music. I still don't know what to think about this. I don't even know if there's an actual device in the apartment or if Harry just lost his mind. I can't really decide who won in the end. Harry for not caring anymore, or the paranoia for making him give up. I am sure of one thing though. Harry is truly alone now. It's just him. And everyone else who's listening. Thank you so much for watching. This video is finally out, and it kinda closes a trilogy about paranoia, surveillance, and technology. The first two videos about the subject are very rough and not my best work, but if you're curious, be sure to check them out. This has been today's Dystopia, and I'll see you soon.